Gentlemen, welcome. In this video we'll be going over how to
Get to the chopper!
By which I mean significantly increase your odds for survival during the evacuation sequence at the end of a Titanfall match. We will be covering how to increase your odds to get to the dropship, both with and without a Titan at your disposal, and tactics to increase the odds the dropship will actually escape. For those of you who don't already know, in most Titanfall modes, at the end of a match, there's an evacuation sequence where the losing team retreats. During the sequence, a dropship arrives at a specified location, awarding about 40 seconds to arrive at the location beforehand, then waits 11 seconds before departing. At around 36 seconds to arrival, respawns are disabled. This allows the losing team to have a chance to earn some points, or the way I prefer to look at it, allows you to escape with the bonus points and burn cards, while the incompetent teammates who made you lose are brutally slaughtered around you. For reaching the dropship, you get 200 points and an evac card, which can award rare cards. However, as per normal, you will not get a card if your deck is full. If the dropship escapes with you on board, you get another 200 points. If you're the only one on board, you gain an additional 100 for being the only survivor. If your entire team is on board, you gain 200 instead of 100, and any number in between awards no additional points. Since losing teams often have a larger skill gap due to the game's continued poor matchmaking, most of the time you'll get the sole survivor bonus. You cannot be killed once inside the dropship, unless the dropship itself explodes. However, you can still shoot out and toss explosives. You should also be aware that only a certain area on each dropship is considered having boarding it. You can attempt to board and fall through the dropship if you're not aiming right. There will be numerous demonstrations throughout the course of this video, but in summary, if you're not aiming for the spot the pilots are standing in before leaving the dropship at the start of a mission, you're doing it wrong. This location can also be boarded from both above and below the dropship, from behind and from the left or right, which includes the ability to pass through its space-worthy hull. However, some parts of the dropship actually are solid, and if you attempt to board the dropship from in front or attempt to pass through the rear fins, you can be bumped off. Tactics for the evac sequence are not so much classified by effectiveness as they are by how charitable you're feeling and what's within your means to do. You get the evac card just for getting on the dropship, so the dropship actually escaping may not have any importance to you. As such, the plan of getting you to the dropship, the plan of making the dropship escape, and the plan of making the dropship escape with you on it will often be three different plans. If your goal is to make the dropship escape, preferably with you on board, you'll really only have the power to alter an outcome if you can influence how many Titans the enemy team has firing at the dropship. Depending on the dropship's location, a skilled enemy can eliminate it with 1 or 2 Titans, though most enemy teams don't know how to do that and will require 3 or 4 to kill the dropship. You can best disrupt this if you have a Titan yourself. While not mandatory, it's preferable that you have nuclear ejection and auto-ejector. If you move your Titan to the dropship's location moments before it arrives, you'll be able to distract the enemy Titans by forcing them to focus on you instead of firing at the dropship for the limited window it can be destroyed. Using your nuclear ejection, you can make enemies need to flee from you, further delaying their ability to damage the dropship. Using electric smoke, you can further disrupt their ability to fire the dropship if they are using lock-on ordnance, and it'll damage enemy Titans as well. If you're using auto-ejector, you can nearly always escape. Since auto-ejector cloaks you, it'll be easier to safely land on the dropship. Auto-ejector will also make it more difficult for an enemy Titan to execute your Titan once it enters a doomed state, and can save your Titan some time on triggering the nuke if your Titan is being destroyed. Combining nuclear ejection, electric smoke, and auto-ejector will usually secure both the safe passage of the dropship as well as your escape on it. It should also be noted that you can board the dropship after it's taken off. While different evac locations have different liftoff patterns, you can to an extent control where you're falling after you've ejected, so in most situations you should be able to board the dropship even if it's in the air, once you've had a little practice. On that note, once you're at least semi-competent at aiming where your ejection will land you, then for you, the timer you need to eject to board the dropship before it leaves will be lowered down to 3 or 4 seconds from departure, depending on where you are relative to the dropship, rather than the accepted timer of 8 seconds. You can also eject from under it to launch yourself into the dropship, allowing you to eject at 1 to 2 seconds from departure, or even after departure, though this requires your Titan to be standing in a specific spot beneath the dropship or its departure path. Triggering a nuclear ejection and launching from your Titan takes about 2 seconds. With a bit of practice, the normal timer needed to get to the dropship will simply no longer apply to you. If your goal is both to save the dropship and escape on it, the biggest mistake people make is getting the Titan killed before the dropship actually arrives. Remember, the most effective strategy for preserving the dropship is using your Titan as a distraction or disruptor for the time that the dropship is actually vulnerable. If you pick a fight with 3 enemy Titans 30 seconds before the dropship shows up, and your Titan is destroyed, you can no longer use it to protect the dropship. It can be worthwhile to fight before the dropship arrives, either because you have no choice or have a damaged enemy Titan that you might be able to pick off, or to harass and distract enemies to keep them from going to the evac zone. If enemy Titans are numerous, you're probably going to want to harass from a distance until right before the dropship shows up, so that you can either bait them into attacking you and not the dropship, or use the nuclear ejection to disrupt their ability to fire at the dropship. It can be a worthwhile tactic to distract an enemy Titan from heading to the evac location if the dropship is moments from arrival. Baiting them to chase you and not be near the dropship and then ejecting to get yourself closer can work if enemies are distracted easily enough. You can potentially go to the zone earlier to secure it for your teammates, but that'll depend on how many Titans your team has in comparison to the enemy team, and how skilled both parties are. Ultimately, the correct course of action is something you'll have to make judgment calls on. If you do not have a Titan at the end of a round, and you wish to secure the dropship's escape, your only real options to meaningfully determine what happens to the dropship are to get a Titan before the dropship arrives, or destroy as many enemy Titans as possible. If the round is about to end and your team is about to lose, you'll either have to find an isolated enemy Titan to rodeo, or some grunts and specters to kill. This will depend on how much of the Titanfall timer you have remaining. A good rodeo should almost fully charge a Titanfall bar, and dooming an enemy Titan will mean that's one less Titan to fire at the dropship. However, making a ruckus as a pilot is inherently more dangerous than doing so in a Titan, since enemy pilots and Titans can shoot you off of their teammates' back, or be drawn to your weapons fire. As such, when you don't have a Titan, the goal of making the dropship escape is contradictory to the goal of getting you on the dropship, since either course of action disadvantages the other. That is not to say that it can't be done with relative safety, but you will be placed at greater risk by attempting to obtain a Titan. If you want to both secure the dropship's escape, as well as be on board, and you don't have a Titan or any means of getting one, you can still harass or even kill Titans that are isolated or damaged with satchel charges or other attacks in relative safety, but that's not going to significantly influence the dropship's chances of survival as often or as safely as having a Titan would. Accordingly, you'll have to weigh if it's better to get on the dropship, or better to risk saving the dropship, and that ultimately comes down to personal preference, as well as an assessment on if you think the other team is likely to destroy it or not. If your goal is just to get on the dropship, and you don't have time for other concerns, don't think the other team will destroy it, or simply don't care, it is still quite easy to get onto the dropship with or without a Titan. With a Titan, the smallest personal risk window is to either exit the Titan in a manner that places you directly in the dropship, or to move your Titan under the dropship, look directly up to make sure you're below the needed area, and eject. If all you're concerned about is the evac burn card, this will virtually always secure your spot on the dropship before the enemy team can destroy it. If the enemy team is stacking their Titans under the dropship, this can also be used for nuclear ejection and electric smoke to save the dropship if you feel so inclined. Since a friendly pilot riding on your back will also be thrown into the above dropship most of the time, this can be used to help a friend escape with you if you're feeling charitable. A Titan ejection can be used to cross a fairly large distance if you opted for the path of farming grunts and specters off on the other side of the map where it's safer to get a Titan, and you need to cross a large distance quickly. This can also be useful for helping you reach dropships that are in a particularly difficult to reach location, or in wide open areas where you're concerned you'd be killed if trying to get there on foot. If you're on foot with a single goal of reaching the dropship and no means of reliably obtaining a Titan, you still should be reaching the dropship most of the time. So let's cover what to do when you need to get to the dropship and are on foot. First off, if you're trying to reach the evac point before the dropship arrives, you're often doing it wrong. Your goal is to get to the dropship before it warps away, not be at the dropship location before it arrives. Remember, the dropship location is shown to the enemy team as well, and they'll usually be heading there in the interest of killing you. If you're standing around at the evac location before its arrival, you're basically acting as cannon fodder for teammates that plan to use you as bait. Instead of rushing to the evac point, you should position yourself in a location where you can get to the dropship at the time it arrives, or before it leaves or is destroyed. And you should be as far away as is practical, unless most of the enemy team is also far away from the evac zone, or your team has Titans and the like to secure the area. This will minimize risk to you, since the enemy team should be focusing on slaughtering your teammates that ran like little red shirts to the slaughter. Remember, your goal is to get to the dropship. You just need to be able to cover the distance in the necessary span of time. And this can mean being more than halfway across the map and only moving 5 seconds before the dropship arrives, if you feel like that's practical. In Titanfall, 10 seconds can be a very long span of time. You should consider what buildings you can parkour off of, and where there are zip lines to use. I'd argue that the best ability for this is Stim. You can use Cloak to reach a dropship and potentially avoid being killed by a Titan, and this may be useful in the event of 5 or 6 enemy Titans. However, your jump jets are still visible to Titans while cloaked, and they may still kill you. You can also use radar vision to attempt to secure buildings and areas near the dropship. Both can be useful, but I feel the mobility of Stim is in most cases superior, since it'll help you cross a great distance very quickly if you positioned yourself correctly, and in my experience, being able to catapult yourself and be on the dropship rapidly offers more survivability than most attempts to secure the area. By arriving fashionably late, you may also encounter enemies with their backs turned or not expecting to see you, especially if many enemies have congregated the evac spot and they're going to fire cluster missiles at it to kill pilots that are boarding the dropship, since that'll allow you to arrive when they're reloading to get on safely, even though 2 or 3 of your teammates just died in front of you, whereas standing around waiting for the dropship might have gotten you killed. So one should consider when you want to arrive a few moments late while enemies are distracted by firing at the dropship or slaughtering your teammates. In cases where your team can secure the evac location and get most of the team on board without being under fire, odds are most of the enemy team is dead, a couple friendly Titans are standing around, and it wouldn't have mattered much if you brought radar vision or not. I feel Stim will make a difference for you in more situations than cloak or radar vision would, though ultimately it comes down to personal preference, and there can be cases where each is beneficial. If you can kill yourself and respawn before respawns are disabled, this will allow you to change your loadout if you so desire, but runs the risk of respawning you in a location you'd rather not be. When one sees the dropship location broadcast, one should consider where to position themselves to cross a large distance quickly. Where can you hide that no one will look? And remember, don't enter the dropship through the fins or the front. Take the scenic route. Take some time to stop, smell the roses, open a bottle of wine, get a massage. Enjoy the finer points of your failure teammates being massacred and their hopes of escape crushed as your dropship leaves with only you on board, leaving behind the people who made you lose, as you enjoy the satisfaction of their demise and your escape. Nothing quite makes one so happy in Titanfall after a lost match than escaping on the dropship while your useless team is brutally murdered. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the misery of your teammates, or enjoy saving them if you happen to be in that sort of mood. If you feel so inclined, please leave a like or a favorite, and subscribe in the name of the dark side. We have cookies. I'll see you next time.